All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. Keep your views coming at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. And we were talking about how come we don't get the leaders of integrity. Chapter 6. How come Kenyans are not able to sift through and see that this is the right leader, this is the wrong leader? Yeah, and an issue that has come up by Wanjiru is that some of them show up too late, like Dr. Ekuru.
I think
First of all, I've been around for the record.
On the eve of the process.
For the eve of the election.
For the record, Trevor,
We haven't had...
let's not propagate that lie.
Let
On a very
us
light
not
note.
undermine
I've been around.
Agreed.
Okay.
I think the basic core of what I think my co-panelists are raising, and which is a clarion call and the theme, is that as Kenyans, we need to move away from the notion that elections is 9th of August 2022. The electoral process is a cycle, and there are numerous, very many moving parts to it that Kenyans need to be aware of. I'll single out these 2022 elections, and with the last elections we had in 2017. Starting with the electoral process, if we isolate it, looking at the petitions that went to the Supreme Court on the presidential election, because that's where a lot of contention is, there are a number of things that came out, a number of points that the court really highlighted. So how far have we gone in ensuring we don't have a repeat of that situation, for instance? And that change is not going to happen 6 months to the election. What we have seen is usually, again, going back to the political class, Kenyans have left everything to them, who of course are in it for survival, for their self-gain. And it's interesting, and Kenyans keep on repeating this, that when the political class needs to rally around something that's common to them, parties don't appear, parties don't feature. They come together, they know what's important for them. It's about survival for the fittest, and they're able to push the reforms or the amendments that are required. Are these necessarily good for Kenyans? No. We have seen that usually it's from a self-seeking perspective. So we need to be able to engage Kenyans, and that does not necessarily mean that come 10th of August, we are in a political process again, or we are politicking. Politicking is about asking questions, seeking accountability. If you have been elected as an MCA, we need to be able to appraise you, because everyone gets appraised, whether you're in self-business or employed. We need to appraise you. How well have you done in terms of fulfilling your mandate? Secondly, in terms of where our money is going. We are among the highest taxed people in the world. When we look at how budgets are developed, how well are Kenyans involved in this? And this is Kenyans across the board, whether it's women, young people, minority people, persons with disability, being involved. So we don't wait until 9th of August or 6 months, as we are seeing now, because sadly it has become a circus. We don't even know which reforms or legislation amendments are being pushed. And that leaves Kenyans confused. And guess what? Of course, it's not a surprise to the political class. They design it that way. And so Kenyans need to go back to basics. And as much as we are in the red, we want to also propagate the hope, Trevor. It is important. And how do we do that? Let's look at lessons. I've had a lot of narrative about possibly a Mandela moment or whatever it is. I don't think we are there yet, personally. If we look back at, I think the closest example to what we can borrow is when we had President Barack Obama elected in the US. Yes, their dynamics are different. But what can we learn? It was a lot of grassroots mobilization. It was a lot of people movement coming together saying, look, this is a change we deserve. I'm not going to go to a political rally to wait to be paid. Whatever I can save, I will donate. If it's offering my time to be able to support the cause, I will find a way. And we need to get Kenyans to that. Yes, our reality is very different. We are having basic issues. We are having Kenyans not being able to afford daily lives. But we can start somewhere, Trevor. And sadly for us as Kenyans, we wait for that grand moment to make a change. We can start every day. Let me give an example. How many of us sit in traffic, and Kenya is a special country, that you have a walkway for pedestrians and you're seeing a PSV literally occupying that and you're comfortable with it? We need to get annoyed. We need to restore law and order starting from the basics, that if you have a pavement for pedestrians, it's for pedestrians. If you have a motorcycle, it needs not to cut corners or jump the lights, there's that rule of law. Because guess what? There's no magic that will happen that we can hold a president to account or a member of parliament if we ourselves cannot obey the law that's there. And it can be done. I disagree with the notion that says Kenyans can never obey the laws. We have seen it work once. The late Michuki, Honorable Michuki, restored order. And it worked. So where did we drop the ball? And why do we have, as Kenyans, to accept these lackluster and very low standards in terms of what we deserve? Because at the end of the day, Kenyans need to internalize why we ask for you not to board a PSV that's overboarded or overloaded is for your own good. Why should I pay the same amount yet I'm going to be squeezed? If we restore dignity, Trevor, and I think what Kenyans are facing is a crisis of dignity. We've given up. We deserve this. It's okay. I can have a matatu and a motorcycle pushing me. We can be carried, 4 of us, and it is a danger to our lives. If we go back to that conversation, it will be much easier
Trevor,
to face the basic.
Trevor, can I, and I love what Anne has said, and I agree with that. But I want to just add another perspective on this, because I agree it's the citizen. The change has to come. Change can come in many ways. In fact, Mandela moment, there's no Mandela moment. He was in jail for 27 years, and during that time, South Africa burned, and the opposition and the organization was very real. The work of the ANC, that civic engagement, actually the defiance, and Kenyans unfortunately don't have that level of defiance. But the point I wanted to make was when we are too enamored with the presidency, and we forget our responsibility in everyday life. The other problem is the professional class. We are the biggest betrayers of our revolution, of our transformation, of our constitution. When we go and sit in a constitutional office, when we go and run a political office, when we go and sit in cabinet, when we sit in a bank, the biggest betrayers of this transformation are the people, are the enablers of the political class, because the political class could not do it on its own. So really, and you know, these are people who are schooled. These are people who are skilled, who have options. Actually, you can move from this job to that job. But we have decided status quo serves us. So this is why I go back to, we need a citizens' movement. We need to do a proper diagnosis and say, how do we change this? Because our systems have been undermined. When you have an electoral system that we don't have confidence in, that is easily manipulated, that political leaders can even stand up and say, we rigged and we're going to rig again, what are you telling Kenyans? So our problem is deep. We are not going to resolve it in 2022. 2022, we can easily predict will be worse, but there are small things we can do. We can choose better leaders at MCA level. It matters, because when you put a criminal into a political office, that criminality comes back to haunt you. And it comes back through theft. We are also seeing increasing political violence. Violence on violence within the political class. So we are actually criminalizing our politics, and we're going to become like the South American countries, where you have, yes, reasonable economic growth, reasonable prosperity against high poverty, but then also a very, embedded political culture that's coming in. We can choose good MCAs, we can choose good MPs. We might not be able to choose influence very much at the higher level, but definitely at the local level we can make sure, like you said, rapists, violators, abusers, thieves, don't let them get your vote.
But
Dr.
Trevor,
Guru, yes.
Generally speaking, we are a very indisciplined society. And that indiscipline has permeated almost every aspect of our society, including the politics. And that's why we are not able to interrogate, to question ideas. I'll give you an example. During the Arab Spring, I had the occasion to go both to Tunisia and Egypt in the constitution-making process. And I remember in Tunisia, I was asking, Tunisians, how did you guys start this? So it took a man called Mohamed Bouazizi, a fruit vendor, who was harassed by like equivalent of our council askari every day. This is a man who goes, buys fruits, and he wants to feed his family. But every time he's being harassed by like our kanjo here. And one time he said, I've had enough. you know, he decided to lit himself up, and that's what sparked the Tunisian revolution. In Egypt, lawyers, you know, directors decided, you know what, we are tired of the ACs in our room when the system is rotten and it's affecting our business, it's affecting our economy. They go to the street, and that's how the revolution started. Let's come to Kenya. You have got a people here, and for me, I still say we are the problem. This political class up there is a gang. So long as you're not threatening their interests, they will gang up at our expense. I'm in a WhatsApp group of parents in a school, in a private school. And I kept on interrogating, why are we being exploited in 2020 during the pandemic? It was lockdown. But our homes had already been transformed into classrooms.
Yeah.
You needed to make sure you buy a proper laptop for your kid. If you have 2 kids, you have to separate them in different rooms for learning. Lucky, if you're lucky, you have a generator. That time, Kenya Power was also messing up. You have to buy bundles. But the schools were still charging 90% of the school fees. And I brought this issue up to the parents. And I asked them, guys, why are we accepting to be exploited? Yes, I know we want to give our kids the best because we're sending them to private school. Why private schools? Because, again, public schools had collapsed. I'm a product of a village school, and here I am. Okay? But, of course, because of how the system is so rotten,
yeah.
you make the choice. Do I want to take my child to a public school where I know they will not get better education? So you take them to a private school. But private schools are now exploiting parents, especially during the pandemic. So I didn't seem to have a problem with that because we made the choice.
Yeah.
But what I had a problem with is when I was bringing this issue to the parents and I was telling them, we are being charged 90% when we are actually the teachers. My wife and I had to make a decision. None of us has to be home to supervise, for example, the little one. You know? So it was affecting even our own economic pursuit.
Yeah.
But this is because we, the so-called middle class, have actually accepted it. And let's now go back to the politics. We are the ones who complain the most. If you look at the devastating effects of the pandemic, the corona pandemic,
yeah.
it affected a lot of middle-class people. As salaries were halved, you know, people even were declared redundant. You know, you're no longer able even to pay medical cover, insurance, and all those things.
Yeah.
Why? Because of bad political decisions. So I still go back to the point that, yes, we need to get involved. If Wanjiru today told me I want to offer myself, so it's not too late. It was never too late for Mohamed Bouazizi to actually decide, you know what, after 23 years of Ben Ali's misrule of Tunisia,
yeah.
you know, he did something and he sparked a revolution. Maybe that's what Kenya needs, so long as we do it within the law. So, please, it's not too late, Wanjiru. Offer yourself.
We'll talk off camera. We talk off camera. Trevor, you witnessed here.
So I think, Trevor,
yeah.
We need to clean up our politics.
Okay.
Because political decisions are affecting everything about this country. And by the way, if you are not careful, I mean, I'm a student of forced migration, and I spent a lot of time when I was doing my doctorate research in refugee camps. And let me tell you, in those refugee camps, I've met generals, attorney lawyers, engineers, whatever. Why? Because the system broke down in their country, and all they could do is cross an international border. It doesn't matter what your title is, you become a refugee. You start relying on World Food Program for free maize, UNHCR and all that for records. Even traveling becomes difficult. So if you're not careful about this kind of, the more the system gets rotten,
yeah.
the more it attracts the bad.
Yeah.
You know? And to Wanjiru's point again, we can only choose good MCAs, MPs, senators, women rep, presidents, if the best offer themselves.
Okay.
You know,
yeah.
Today, if only the bad offer themselves, that's why you have got this choice between the bad, is it the baddest?
The bad and the
bad. Okay, let me take some feedback here, then I come back and take a look at here your views on the daily headlines that Kuru is not very impressed with. Let's find out what you're thinking. But let's see what you're saying online here. Bring them up and see on screen, then get a quick feedback. Washi says, kindly ask the panelists what the civil society has done to strengthen Leadership and Integrity Act that was watered down by Parliament, politicians, to make it a very weak law that cannot properly operationalize the provisions of Chapter 6. Wanjiru, they want to know what you have done as a civil society.
Civil society, well, this matter actually went to court.
Yeah.
Because, yes, right, it was the NARC administration, in fact, the coalition government of
Raila
and Kibaki, who sat as cabinet and watered down that law. And of course, the rest is history. There have been, I think, a number of cases on Chapter 6. So civil society has sought to use the court system to raise the standards of vetting, and we had a positive judgment with Justice Ngugi.
Yeah.
But the enforcement, you know, is still a problem.
That's what the problem is.
Right. So the enforcement still becomes a problem. So Chapter 6 is what else has civil society done? Civil society runs the Red Card campaign. They ran it in 2017, where we list leaders who are not eligible, and we gave these names to the IBC, to the vetting institutions. Unfortunately, the vetting institutions didn't use the list. This year, again, we'll give the list to the institutions, but we also want to give the list to Kenyans. It was publicly available, but push it with Kenyans and popularize it, because Kenyans also have a choice. So we need, as Kenyans, to get out of... We are in a very, you know, chicken and egg situation, because on one hand, we've got bad systems. Bad systems propagate bad culture, and then propagate bad systems. So we're in this cycle, as Dr. Ekuru has told us. If we are not careful, it could spin out of control and get very nasty. So how do we disrupt it? The laws don't work. We are hoping the IBC, we are seeing some things, some kind of actions that may be taken against political leaders. If that doesn't happen, as citizens, we then need to reject these leaders. The strongest sanction is social sanction. And I go back to this, as civil society, possibly we haven't done enough to build the citizens' movement for integrity and good governance, where we demand good governance of our leaders and in our everyday lives. Let us also stop being too enamored with the office of the president. It's a very important office. But under the Constitution, a lot of power shifted to the governors, to the MCAs. So that MCA who we deride so much, most people, when we go to vote, we have no idea who the MCA is. We even tick just for the party. We go this 6-peat thing, forgetting that our daily life, our roads, the sewage, our daily, those dispensaries we are talking about are in the hands of the MCA. So
the CIDP.
Yeah, so we have done a bit as civil society. We can't do it alone. We need, citizen action. And I keep going back to the middle class. The ones who, they're the largest tax-paying sector of the country. And you saw in 2020 how the government panicked with COVID. And you're like, people are laid off. There's no pay as you earn. These foolish middle class who pay, who support really the basic revenue to the government, who then, despite doing that, go and buy private insurance, go and pay for private schools, go and cabro work their roads, because that's what middle class does. Middle class gets a job, they then pay government a lot of money, and then they go pay for their own public services. So until the middle class figure out this is a loss-making, approach, we are going to stay in this problem. So like I said, we have a complex situation, but there are small actions that we can do. And the Red Card campaign is one.
And just to add, just because it's a valid point, I think civil society has actually paid the ultimate price. We have statistics of human rights defenders who have actually lost their lives on account of pushing for transparency, accountability of leaders, and this cannot be lost. So I think Kenyans need to understand when they see the movement, and we have been on the streets, indicating that we want proper investigation into extrajudicial killings where human rights defenders have lost their lives. Part of it has been because they are pushing for integrity and accountability. But secondly, back to the Kenyans, let it not be lost to us that we've had the ultimate act by Chief Justice Emeritus, for example, where he dissolved the current parliament for failure to adhere to the two-thirds rule. That should get Kenyans to ask. There are numerous cases that civil society had taken to court from 2010 on the two-thirds gender rule, and that it got to appoint a Chief Justice actually writes to the head of state that you need to dissolve parliament. That should get Kenyans to understand that civil society has played their role, and we continue doing it. But again, it's a lonely walk. It's not easy to be a civil society activist,
Trevor,
and it can also get dangerous.
And Trevor, going back to Kenyans, Kenyans now need to really say, okay, we have had a parliament that has failed us. both in terms of representation, legislation making, and holding government to account. These are the three functions of parliament. But today, if you look at our parliament, it's like an appendage of the executive, which means, therefore, they are losing in their responsibility of representation. The people who sent them to Bunge are not getting value for, for the leadership. Yeah. So, if Kenyans really wanted to begin a change, and maybe this is the clarion call we are now telling Kenyans, there's 2022. You now have an opportunity to say, we sent you to Parliament, Trevor. During your tenure as a parliamentarian, you failed to do ABCD. The VAT Act, for example, was passed by the same parliament. That was punishing you. Ata mafuta ya taa. It was going to cost you a lot of money. All these things. So I guess Kenyans now have the opportunity to say, we will replace this new leadership. Secondly, as we go into this election, and we must remind Kenyans, Kenyan politics has been commercialized by the few individuals we are now, propagating in the headlines here. It's about money, but we don't interrogate where is this money coming from, okay? They come, they put you, vijana hapa, or mama pale, wazee pale, and you're given handouts. Yeah. This handout is partly the reason we end up with bad leadership in this country. And when leaders use money that cannot even be accounted for to seek public office, that is a corrupt leader in the making. Because what will they do? They will have to recoup that investment. So politics in Kenya has become an enterprise on its own, a commercial enterprise. Yeah. And therefore, when leaders go there, and I remember asking someone, I have a conversation sometimes with members of parliament, and they say, but why are you guys failing really to do your work? They say, hey, these Kenyans, when you come to talk to them about policies, they will tell you, no, but now, after you're done with your policies, now how are you leaving us? Yeah. I've since learned of words, the Luo was like gonya. I think among Kalenjin, there's something called something untie me, as if you've been tied. Yeah. So again, this is the bad culture that we have as Kenyans, and because we have commercialized our politics, and because the leadership knows, if I come with whatever source of money, I bribe my way in, and some of them actually say boldly, I spent money. I spend my money, so I owe them no responsibility, because if it wasn't for my money, So I think here we are saying, Kenyans, it's an election year. Yeah. Again, I'll repeat, it's not too late for you to make the right decision. And which party are you running with? Because I have a statement from Frederick Okango here. He says the Third Way Alliance was suspended. That's a lie. Listen, first of all, Frederick Okango, and I don't really want to talk about political miscreants like him in a very important show like this, he's in Kanu. What business does he have to comment about my party when he's already in Kanu? So that's a lie. You could say, because now he's in Kanu, because after we chased him out, because he was a political mole in our party, who actually went and sold, by the way, Punguza Mizigo to BBI. You remember he presented a Punguza Mizigo bill to BBI. That was in March of 2020. So you're still running with that. I want to wish him very well in Kanu. Yeah. I know ni msimu wa kununuliwa na transfer, and we respect that. But he has no business commenting about the activities of our party. After all, what has Kanu done to this country compared to what Punguza Mizigo? So it's Third Way Alliance. Third Way Alliance, Kenya, that's my focus. So are you going to are you going to get into any other coalitions? Because there are those who say you can't win this on your own now. To be honest, where we have also reached as a people, I think sometimes whether you are the lone voice in the jungle, so long as you're speaking the truth, I think sometimes it's good to stick to what you principally believe in. Now, when I think about coalitions in this country, what are they really about? Coalitions in this country is about individuals coming together to propagate their own interest. They don't really carry the people or the interests of the country with them. For example, today, let's talk about the two coalitions that are forming. Ruto's, is it Kenya Kwanza? Kenya Kwanza. They called it Kenya Kwanza. In those political rallies, what really do you hear that is of benefit to the people of Kenya? In Azimio, the same thing. I hear nothing. And when you go back to the question of, let's interrogate these people who are forming coalitions. They are forming this coalition because they have themselves, their own interest. I don't really want to discuss personalities. I wish we could discuss, issues, because some of those individuals, when they were in government, and they have been in government for all these years, are associated with some of the most corrupt scandals in this country. If you think about Goldenberg, you know who you can actually point the finger to. Anglo leasing and all those things, Mahindi Saga, Makaburi, and the sale of our embassies and all that. These are the people who are coming together in a coalition, because today, if they know, if we had a change of government, a responsive government that actually will call for accountability, will follow, will investigate the corruption scandal, we will have to build a very huge prison, probably even a museum-like prison, so that we can put all of them together and let Kenyans be visiting them and say, this is a man because of the KEMSA scandal, the Goldenberg scandal, the Anglo-Leasing, the Triton, all those things. So they form coalition, yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Trevor.
So you're not...
If you allow me...
Let him finish on the coalitions.
I don't know whether I'll be doing myself justice to go into coalition with people who are scandalous, who have been part and parcel of our problem, or I'll choose to challenge Kenya and tell Kenyans, you can think outside the box.
So you want to go this alone?
I can form a coalition with Wanjiru today, I'll be happy.
What about Ruben Kigame? Look for like minds.
Yeah.
Because then, actually, we can then start the movement of like minds that are offering alternative leadership. And we do need alternative leadership.
In the interest of disclosure, Wanjiru, I've had a conversation with Ruben Kigame. We've even met twice. So I'm more than happy to consider that kind of coalition. Like I said earlier, if there is a better Kenyan, much better than me, to be honest with you, I am happy to do my work as a lawyer and try to fix things from a legal point of view. But we must ensure that the country is in the right hands.
I actually believe if we had an alternative leadership platform that brought together a number of voices, because you can't do it alone. You would then have the traction on the ground. It may not necessarily lead to 2022 presidential election, but it would lead into citizens coming on board, feeling it, and you could pick up quite a lot of seats. And who knows? Who knows? But I think trying to go it alone may not work.
But you see, Trevor, people dismiss strong ideas sometimes because they look at it from a political point of view. Let me give you a small look. I can see a tweet there somebody has sent. Did you know, for example, and I'm not bragging, if you read the Supreme Court, judgment of 2017, did you know actually it was the contribution of Third Way Alliance Kenya under my leadership that actually caused the nullification of the election? People think it is Raila. No. I remember sitting down with Raila and asking Raila, you cannot argue this 10 million strong because you can't prove it. And we gave him statistics. Actually, Ahmed Nasir and I, we sat down and we cracked the figures. And we said, okay, fine, let's start with Kiambu. And this is the political reality Kenyans need to talk about. Because of ethnic mobilization, Kiambu at that time had 1.2 million voters. Then we looked at the figures from Kisumu, Siaya, Omae, and Migori, because that is the character of our politics. They couldn't match Kiambu. Ujaongeza Muranga, Kirinyaga, Nyandarua, where tribal mobilization takes place. But what we contributed, again, when people say, oh, you're alone, you can't do it alone, what we contributed as a party, we looked at the transmission of the results. And we said, and I remember asking my chairman, you are an accountant, an auditor, can you please track my vote from Kapedo Primary Girls, where I voted, to the National Tallying Center? And we came with a list, an audit report, which we filed in the Supreme Court, that showed irregularities and illegalities in the transmission of results. And that's what nullified the election of President Uhuru Kenyatta. But because some people are loudmouths, they've controlled the media, they'll get the headline, but not a Kura record. So I'm saying... But you're here now to set the record straight. Even in our own small way, Wanjiru, I want to persuade you we can still make a contribution.
Agreed.
May I just add something, Trevor? And I think on coalitions, we need to also factor in as Kenyans, as has been said, they're not necessarily bad. They're actually good, because it means people who share certain ideals come together, decide, then let's form a force, because you cannot go it alone. The question Kenyans at this point need to ask, because this is what we are facing, is as people dance on podiums, because we are back to the dancing on podiums. In the political rallies, what's the substance that's being given? Are we vetting? Are we hearing? And partly one of the things that's concerning is, which we need to highlight, is part of what is coming out and we are seeing in a lot of those podiums is actually not helpful to the country. It is very insightful. It is really causing trouble. It is hate speech. So as Kenyans go to listen, because at the end of the day, Kenyans must come out, and listen to these voices. Please question, away from the theatrics on those podiums, what is the substance? Is it going to make my life better? Is it rhetoric? Are we being, as we say in Kenya, are we being panguard? Or is it actually something that we can hold them to account? Because remember, it's also very much harder to be able to hold coalitions to account. But secondly, the very fundamental question of how did we get here and what is it going to cost Kenyans? If you have a coalition government coming in, at the end of the day, we must face the question of the bottom line. What does that mean for our wage bill, for our for taxpayers, and will it be value for money? Because yes, we don't mind paying for coalition, but is it value for money? Are we going to see a translated development record? And sadly, we've been at this, I think, as a country, and we saw it did not really yield much fruit. So
and
those
even
are
the appointed positions, what does that mean? Will you then get people with merit, or is it just cronies being rewarded?
It becomes hard. And then thirdly, which Kenyans need to now be most aware of, is those who will hide behind the coalition.
Exactly.
Because that's what is happening. That, you know, for me to be able to go through, I have to sing the loudest, talk the loudest. And really, at the end of the day, we know your track record as a leader was really not impressive at all. So Kenyans need to be able to then question what's the mischief behind coalitions. Why talk of political parties as institutions and come in? And even as you come in as coalitions, am I able to still single out you as an individual, you as a political party, that at the end of the day, this is what you stand for, and you're not being brought into a bandwagon? And a lot of what we are seeing is, especially on the question of Chapter 6, that a lot of mischief is going to occur in the coalitions, that people are actually hiding behind this, because they know at the end of the day, as Kenyans vote now, it is either this coalition or that coalition, and that is where to land us to where we are at. And sadly, if you're not careful, the next 5 years will even be worse, because already at global level, we are facing a crisis of economics. We have the global pandemic still going on. And then thirdly, we are still reeling from the inflation that has gone so high. Kenyans are at pain. Let me give you an example, and it's important to highlight this. At times, even at my own institution, that is FIDA, where I head, we send out calls for people to work, to apply for positions, and you'll be amazed at how many Kenyans are desperate for jobs. We need to call that out. Kenyans are hurting, they have to feed their children, they have to put food on the table. So away from this noise, away from the dancing, away from this rhetoric, can we please differentiate the substance from what really is important?
And there's a very important point I want to follow up on that. Trevor, even as we talk about these coalitions, please let's unpackage the lies. Because there's a lot of political dishonesty in the formation of this coalition. For example, if you look at the latest formation, Kenya Kwanza. Before, I think a month or 2 months before that, it was there were clips of Musalia Mudavadi castigating William Ruto. Saying, for example, how his salary, his phones, the problem we have today is been caused by this man, calling him all manner of names. They're calling him a thief and all that. Then all of a sudden, they are buddies now. They are dancing together in those podiums, and Kenyans are buying into these lies. So, you know, it's been said that even among thieves there has to be some degree of honor. You know, you can't lie to people so openly. So I think guess what we are also saying here. Kenyans, please open your eyes. I mean, look at the other coalition of Uhuru and Raila. Before long, I mean, I remember Raila calling Uhuru all manner of names. Uhuru calling Raila all manner of names. Then all of a sudden, they have become brothers. Let me tell you, ni sisi wa Kenya ndio tunachezwa. Because at the end of the day, it is about these people. It's about their personal interest. You know, apparently my adopted home is Nyeri, because my wife comes from there. And I since learned a word called, you know, during campaign time, they used to say, "Udhamaki ni wito, dhamaki ni jao." But today, you find the Maki and Udhamaki, they are together, and the Thurakus, who are told Kumera Thuraku, are now left on their own. They are the ones complaining about the bad state of the economy, you know, bad roads and all those problems, and even being threatened. Today, I know people don't want to be honest about this. I know friends of mine of Kikuyu descent, somewhere in Rift Valley, are not comfortable. There are silent threats about them that if you don't vote us in, you know, you might. And I know many people were displaced back in the days. Those fears are still there, and they're being instigated politically, but we are not calling them out. So even as Kenyans dance in these coalition podiums, let's also interrogate the dishonesty of those individuals who are forming those coalitions. Because to be honest, they are forming those coalitions so they can shield themselves and protect themselves from the bad things they have caused this country and Kenyans over the years they've been in government. Let
me finish up with reading the feedback and then give you a chance for closing remarks real quick. Let's bring them up on screen. Conrad Kulo says, as per the repeat of the 2017 general elections, Ekuru Aukot is Kenya's opposition chief. What are the measures he and his party had in place to check the government? He basically has been home or somewhere resting. Why is he back now? I think you answered that already. Aleki says, my question for Wanjiru Gikonyo is, why are Kenyans more critical of candidates who come in late than the ones who have served for a long time and have little to show for it? You'll give that as your closing remark. Keva Tob says, the problem we have in this country is the reluctancy of the middle class. The less fortunate go out on the street seeking justice and change, but the middle class only complain by tweeting. We also need hot seats for these candidates and ask them serious questions, okay? Okelo Mwalimu says the reality of Kenyan politics as far as presidential race is concerned is there are only two viable contenders and many pretenders. Some pretenders only launch bids to remain politically relevant, only to later abandon such bids. Idealists like Ekuru Aukot will disagree, okay? Masaka Wilson says, one of our misdoings is that we vote and go back to sleep just to be woken up early in the next election cycle to vote again. What will usher in the Kenya that we want is on how we engage meaningfully before, during, and after the elections. Okay? Kiswi Philip says, Ekuru Aukot is very right that Kenyans have never known the difference between us and other developed nations globally. It's our bad political decisions that we make through the ballot that are driven by tribalism and selfishness. All right? Start with closing remarks. Daktari, with you.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't want to say much. It's an election year. We will keep on preaching the message that Kenyans need to interrogate leaders. Kenyans need to interrogate policies. Kenya needs to interrogate these promises. And I think at the end of the day, Kenyans, it's about leadership that will make our country better.
Yeah.
It's a stewardship that will make right decisions. If the people you put out there are not the kind of leaders that actually look after your interests, then you only have yourself to blame, because these leaders don't elect themselves. They can cast the one vote that they have, but it's the majority of votes from you, the people of Kenya, that actually put them in those offices.
Okay.
So as you put them in those offices, you must make sure that you continue to interrogate their performance. And we have a chance in this 2022 election in August to now really ask hard questions. How have you performed? You know, and I think for me, a political revolution, a vote revolution is something that Kenyans today need.
Okay. And you're confirming you're running for president, so we'll get
I am
clearance from
confirming
IBC.
I'll be in the ballot.
All right. Wanjiru?
Possibly Wanjiru as my running.
There's a long-term strategy. Because the point is we need alternative leadership.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're having very populist messaging that's very short-term and very inciting. That's very harmful. Because, in fact, some of these political candidates, when they get into office, will have a very difficult time because they're making promises that they cannot deliver. And they'll have really riled up the ground. So what is missing, I think, is the alternative leadership parties and platforms to come together and really be committed to this project called Kenya and not do what Wilson is doing, which is this episodic engagement. We need to do that. The other thing that's coming up, of course, is the Red Card campaign. It's a civil society campaign that looks at political leaders and looks at blacklisting them. And we're going to go out to citizens and ask them to blacklist political leaders of dubious integrity. These are small things we can do as we wait for the alternative leadership platforms to get together and launch a serious, sustained bid to transform the country with a long-term view on how we'll do that.
All right. Anne?
Thank you, Trevor. My parting shot is threefold. One, to current office bearers, those who are offering themselves for office, I think you owe it to this country to be honest. When you stand on that podium, history will judge you. Please be honest. It is really short of an insult to Kenyans who are really suffering for you to come with lies or to really misinterpret or to misrepresent what it is that you're going to vie for. So because you have that responsibility of that podium, please be honest, please have integrity, and please preach peace. To the first-timers, I think the country is ready for you. Please don't shy away, even if it's your first time and you're offering yourself for office. I think you owe it to us to see the great leadership that you have, that you please come out, please spell out your manifesto, let us know what it is that you're going to do, because this country needs enough first-timers to be able to offer the alternative leadership. And lastly, to Kenyans, I think let's be able to separate the lies from the substance. Let's be able to bear in mind that elections is a cycle. It's not a one-day event. So if you accept to go out and listen, make it worth your time. It's not to be reduced to 50 shillings or 100 shillings. Ask the questions, be able to demand accountability. At the end of the day, we are 6 months to an election. We may not change too much, but it is a start of us getting possibly to 2027 where we'd want to be. So let's not lose hope as Kenyans. Still a lot can be done. To the institutions that are tasked with election management, the eyes are now on them. Please fulfill your mandate without fear or favor. Be able to really come together and ensure that this country has a free, fair and credible election process, because we have seen it determines a lot. We don't want 10th of August to have a situation that we cannot be able to salvage. So let's all come together. I think this country needs us, but it's not too late in the day.
All right. Thank you so much for making time this morning. Annie Reri, Chairperson, Ilo Gwanjiru Gikonyo, National Coordinator, TSN Convener, Okoa Uchumi Campaign, and Dr. Ekuru Aukot, Party Leader, Third Way Alliance. Thank you so much for making time this morning. Coming up next is nutrition and lifestyle with Willis Bazura Buru. See you in just a bit.